gives a coin value? Because that's often misunderstood with new collectors. Most people, certainly people who call me on the phone, they talk about, my coin is from the 1870s, so it's very old and it must be very rare, therefore it must be very valuable. And that's just not true. One of the least important factors that determines the value of a coin is age. It's not like furniture. It really doesn't matter how old a coin is. And if you don't believe me, if you go over to the ancient coin section and you take a look at some Roman bronze coins that are about 2,000 years old, you can pick many of them up for about $6 or $7. So the age of a coin really has very little to do with the value. There are really three important variables that determine the value of a coin. Number one is the mintage number. How many coins were made in a particular year? Most people would have you believe that the mint makes the same amount of coins every year, and that's just not the case. They don't. Not only do the mint in total not make the same amount of coins per year, but the different mints within the country make different amount of coins every year. So what will happen is that some years you may have coins that there are a lot of them that have been minted in the millions, and then there may be years where they mint far fewer. Generally, the years in which they mint fewer coins, those coins tend to have more value in general. So that's variable number one. Variable number two is the condition or grade of a coin. I will spend a little bit more time talking about that later, but in general, the higher the grade or the higher the condition of the coin, the more valuable it tends to be. Right? So, and that's why when people call me on the phone, I can rarely help them because I can't see their coin. It's like, well, can you hold it a little bit closer to the phone, and maybe I can. And so I can't determine the grade. And they might say, when I tell that to them, they'll say, well, it's in good shape. Well, see, that doesn't help me at all, because actually, good is a term that's used as a grade, but what they don't know is that good is the term for a very worn coin. That's the least passable grade for a coin to go into a collection. And in my mind, I know that that's probably not what they mean. I mean, after all, if somebody asks you, how's your car running? You say, it's running good, you know? And that means that there's nothing wrong with it. It's doing great. But that's not what it means in the coin world. So, that doesn't help me. So we've already said that the mintage number is one variable. Another variable for the value is the grade or condition of the coin. And the third variable is demand. And there really isn't a set rule about demand. An example of that is we're passing around 2 coins. And one of those coins is a peace dollar. And peace dollars, just for whatever reason, aren't in particularly high demand. But the design for the dollar that was minted before the peace dollar, the Morgan dollar series, is probably the most collectible coin in that the United States has ever made. I would bet that if we somehow could take a poll, we would find out that more Morgan dollars are sold here at the show than any other coin, by a wide margin. So that's what I mean by demand. Certain coins are always in demand, others are kind of sleepers and are not. And there really isn't any particular reason why or why not. But anyway, those are the 3 variables that determine the value of coins. Well, I mentioned earlier that we talk about grading. And grading is something that's very subjective. But I believe that all of us can learn to become good enough graders to at least be able to grade our own coins. And I would suggest to you that that's a very important component of being a coin collector. Because if you aren't able to grade your own coins, I would say that you're missing a lot out of the hobby. So there are several ways, if you're not familiar with how to grade your coins, there are several ways that you can go about doing it. At the A&A, we have something called Summer Seminar, where members from all across the country come to take classes at headquarters. And one of the things that we do is we teach grading classes. So we can put a whole bunch of coins in front of you, we talk with you about how grading is performed, and to go to work. If that's not something that somebody can do, we have correspondence courses where you can learn how to grade. Is that as good as taking a live class? No, but it's the next best thing. But however you learn how to grade, I would encourage you to do so, because it really is, to get the most out of the hobby, you need to be able to do that. And I say that because, now we have third-party grading companies. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with our third-party grading companies. They perform a valuable service. However, I think one of the downsides to having third-party grading companies is that some people can get a little lazy and they decide, well, I don't really need to know how to grade because I can just send them to the third-party grading company and not have to worry about that. Well, that's not a particularly good strategy. And the reason is, well, there's several reasons. Reason number one is, the grade that is assigned by that grading company may not be the grade that you're comfortable with. I'm not a professional grader, never have been. Don't want to be. I can't imagine looking at Silver Eagle after Silver Eagle. I mean, shoot me now. That's not what I want to do. But I have been grading for as long as I've been a collector, for close to 40 years. And there are times when I strongly disagree with a particular grade that came from one of the grading companies. So that's an important reason why you need to learn how to grade. Typically, someone at a grading company who is looking at your coin spends 4 seconds with it, and then they move on to the next coin. And they very well may grade it accurately, but really, do you want to depend consistently for your own coins on someone who's spending 4 seconds? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And so that's an important component. The other component is that not only should you learn how to grade, but you really should be able to try your best to be able to learn the difference between authentic coins and coins that have been altered and counterfeited, and coins that have been cleaned. People thought, well, I don't have to worry about counterfeit coins anymore because when I send them to the grading company, they'll be able to tell whether they're counterfeit or not. And that's true. But the only problem is, now there are counterfeit slabs out there. So you have to worry about, well, is the slab from a grading company the real deal, or is that a counterfeit? Because if it's a counterfeit slab, you can bet your bottom dollar that the coin inside the slab is counterfeit as well. So for those reasons, I think, and I'm not trying to talk down the grading companies, they perform a very valuable service, but I think you should work with them and not just use them exclusively. Does that make any sense? Let's spend some time talking about how to collect. Now this is it sounds so simplistic, but I think that's the most important topic that we may discuss today, is how to collect coins. There are several ways in which you can put a collection together. Probably the most popular way in which to put a coin collection together is by set. What I mean by that is, the object is to collect every coin in that set, every year and every mint mark. So for example, Lincoln cents. Your set would be completed after you've collected an example of a Lincoln cent from every year and every mint. And then at that point you would be completed. That's one way to collect. Another way to collect coins is by type. So for example, your idea is to find the best example of half dollars. So the first one you want to get is maybe, a flowing hair $50, and then you want to get a Liberty seated $50, and an example of a Liberty walking $50, and an example of a Franklin $50, and so on. That's collecting by type. And then you could also, that's only the tip of the iceberg. There are lots of other ways you collect. You might not want to collect United States coins. Maybe you want to collect world coins. Maybe you want to collect a coin from every country that you visited. Or maybe you want to collect a coin from every country that exists in the world. Or maybe you want to collect by animals. You only want to collect coins that have horses on them. Or just an animal in general. Or maybe you don't want to collect coins, maybe you want to collect paper money. That's a whole other outfit. And maybe you only want to, I know people who only collect paper money that has the color purple in it. That's what they enjoy. So really, my point is, try not to box yourself in. The important thing is that the only two boundaries that you have in terms of collecting is your imagination and your wallet. Those are really the only two boundaries. So keep that in mind. If you decide to collect by set, which if you remember, that's the first one I talked about. If you decide to collect by set, if you collect by set, The most important piece of advice I can give you is, as a new collector, do not start with a difficult set. The road of coin collectors is littered with people who have started a difficult set, have gotten, they weren't able to complete it, and they've left the hobby. So if you decide you like to collect by set, my suggestion to you is start off with a set that is easy to complete. If you do that, you'll have a sense of accomplishment. You'll have gained very valuable experience. And then you can move on to a more difficult set. Examples of sets that I would encourage you to start out with are Jefferson nickels. Jefferson nickels are a great set to start out with. Even though the series has become long because they've been around since 1938, there really isn't a Jefferson nickel that costs a great deal of money. So you can't get burned on that. That's a great set to start out with. Another set that I would encourage you to use are Eisenhower dollars. That's another great set. It's a short set. It started in 71, finished in 78. There are a couple varieties within the set, but it's still a rather short set. There's no big hitters in the Eisenhower series. There won't be one where you spend a lot of money. And another great set, if you want something that has a little bit more pizzazz, let's say that you say, well, yeah, but I want something that maybe has silver content in it. I want to collect silver coins. Okay, well, then you would start off with a set of Franklin half dollars. Okay, Franklin half dollars are a great set to start out with. And again, I suggest that you do that because you'll be able to complete the set, you won't have spent a lot of money, so you'll have a real sense of accomplishment, and you won't have gotten burned by paying an extraordinary amount of money for a coin that you should not have done so. What happens is, people start out with, oh, well, I'm going to start out with the Morgan Dollar series. Boy, you know, I can't think of a more difficult series to start out on. It's a very long series. There are extremely expensive coins within the series. I mean, coins that are thousands and thousands of dollars. Why do you want to set yourself up with failure with that? And what happens is that people start out with the least expensive coins in that series, hoping that someday they'll have the resources to pay the big money for the coins that they need. And you know what? That day never comes. And if it did come, you've gone about it all wrong, because if you're going to attempt a difficult series like Morgan Dollars, what you want to do is you want to buy the most expensive ones first, because those prices never go down. Those expensive ones only go up. So you want to buy those first. That's the proper strategy. But because we don't have resources to do that, that's what happens. And we get discouraged and we leave the hobby. So please take my advice. If that's the way you want to collect, start with something easy, get your feet wet, get some experience, and then build up after that. Okay?